This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is Mike, and you can find me at I am Mike White on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer. And we're back for part 2 of our Marvel Cinematic Universe retrospective episodes. This is The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com and find the companion blog at obsessiveviewer.com. And also, quick note, come see us at Indie PopCon June 26th to June 28th. It's my birthday weekend, but whatever. Don't feel obligated to give me a present. We'll have live recording at the booth and a lot of fun stuff in the works. And tickets are on sale at indiepopcon.com. How's it going, everyone?
Terrific.
It is good.
Nice. Yeah, so this is part 2. This is our phase 2 of Marvel Cinematic Universe retrospective. That was just crazy. But yeah, so last week we talked about phase 1, and we kind of got a little... I think the consensus with us was that it really wasn't as good as we remembered. I think, Mike, you may have mentioned that, at least in pre-show. And I'm really looking forward to this part because it's a lot better in my opinion. And really quickly, I just want to mention that last week I mentioned that I've watched a little bit of Agent Carter and I haven't gotten around to Daredevil. Just really briefly, I finished Agent Carter. It's not as good as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a solid show. So I think the problem I have with Agent Carter is that while Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., gives good background to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and has a core group of a core team that works together well and interacts well together. Agent Carter is not quite that. It's a period piece providing history to like the birth of S.H.I.E.L.D., but S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't like, it's not even in their radar of starting S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's weird because at the very outset of the series, Peggy Carter is asked to be a double agent, so her coworkers in the show, it's not a team. It's like she's immediately on the opposite side of them, and it doesn't really give good character dynamics built in. And I'll stop talking here in a second. I watched the first episode of Marvel's Daredevil, which was really, really good, and I can't wait to watch more of it. Just the tone and the lighting in particular was really jaw-dropping. And I posted this on Facebook, but as a longtime fan of Boardwalk Empire, I'm really glad to see Charlie Cox kicking ass in a show that people actually watch. Having said that,
wow,
what are your guys' thoughts on phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Overall, we're shooting our wad early.
Well, give an overview. Should we do an overview and then go movie by movie?
Yeah, sure.
It's
better. It's absolutely better. We get some really quality movies. I think before we could talk about, what were good comic book movies, but I think we get really, really quality different kinds of movies this time around.
Absolutely.
True. There's only, just looking at the list, there's like one turd out of 5. And all the other ones are at least solid, if not really good.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wonder if looking back at all this in, 5 years, 7 years, however, and we see it all as like a trilogy of phases, maybe we'll have more respect for the first one because Marvel was just kind of finding its stride and just kind of getting going and,
Would you say that we'd have a new hope for the first phase?
I hate you right now.
Hashtag Disney.
Don't cross-reference.
Don't cross the streams of reference.
God.
I'm so sorry.
Anyways, it's better. Way better.
Nice. So as an overview of Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 2, we have Iron Man 3 from 2013, and then Thor, The Dark World, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Avengers Age of Ultron. So starting out, Iron Man 3, what do you guys think of think of the third entry in the Iron Man franchise. This
we reviewed this, didn't we?
I don't think we. I think that that reminds me. I meant to re-listen to our Captain America episode because we did Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I know that. I don't think we ever did Iron Man 3. Did we?
I don't think we did.
I know that we talked about it.
We did.
Because I mentioned, I remember getting texts afterwards kind of thanking us for not overpraising it.
Right.
And I think I'm going to stick with that. Even the second time through. What I love about the movie is that we get immediate fallout from the Avengers. I love that Tony Stark is going through something. But it's still, what did I say last time? I said something about how I wish there was more Iron Man, which is such an elementary, such a childish complaint to have about these types of movies anymore. But there was very, very little Iron Man in the third movie. And also kind of the end of it left me with a weird taste in my mouth, wondering what his intention is. Why is he destroying all of his Iron Man suits? I don't know. I had a lot of problems with it. I think it was fun, but what do you guys think?
Just to echo what I said about it the last time is I just appreciate the movie so much because it's such a beautiful wrap up for the character. And that's what stuck out to me. I totally get that, he was only in the Iron Man suit for like 20 minutes in this movie. We saw a lot of Iron Men, but they were just empty suits. There was nothing in there. But I just think that set up the whole concept of him trying to still, Tony Stark still trying to figure out his relationship with this suit. How much of it is him? How much of it isn't him? Can he really be the same Tony Stark that he's become without the suit? It's just all this weird conflict and internal conflict that the character goes through. And I really felt that with this movie. That's what I loved about it. It wasn't about the action. It wasn't about stopping a horrible villain. It was just about Tony Stark wrestling with his own demons still. And I thought that in that respect, it was just beautifully done.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And and by the way, we talked about Iron Man 3 in episode 34 of the podcast. It was our 2013 year in review. And if I'm looking at the timestamps correctly, it was at about around the hour mark. Tiny brought it up in his best movies of 2013, I think.
Right. Okay.
So anyway, I really, really enjoyed this movie, and having rewatched it like freshly, like within the past week, I think what I latched onto most is like you said, Mike. I really, really, really enjoyed how it follows up on the Avengers and how he has these severe anxiety attacks over saving the Earth and like nearly sacrificing his life for the greater good. It's a very almost dark kind of dynamic for the character, and it really, while it's not like an evolution from the second movie, it's just a really nice wrinkle in the characterization of Tony Stark, and it gives it kind of injects some new blood after the bad taste of Iron Man 2. And I understand your issues with him not being in the Iron Man suit throughout a lot of it, and I wouldn't go so far as to say that that's an elementary kind of criticism, because he's Iron Man, he should be in the Iron Man suit, and I made a big stink about Iron Man 2, him tarnishing the suit by being drunk in it and acting like an idiot, but with this, it gives him he's more vulnerable in that aspect of it, and I really liked what Shane Black brought to the movie, both visually and in the screenwriting, because the dialogue is just absolutely, it's a riot. Like there's the scene where the kid, which I thought was a little contrived, but we'll get to that in a moment, but the scene where the kid talks about how his dad left, and And Tony's just like, well, big deal. Dad's leave. No need to be a pussy about it.
Yeah.
When
That's good.
Oh my! Like the entire theater roared with laughter, and I missed like the next two lines because I was laughing so hard. But yeah, and you know, it's a problematic movie, but I think that it's a really interesting avenue for the Tony Stark character to take, and I really liked it.
I've only actually seen the movie twice. You know, I watched it when it came out, obviously, and then I got the Blu-ray and watched it shortly after it came out. And unfortunately, I don't really have much of a base of argument against it, and I'm kind of a little remiss about that. But I do remember that my feeling both times was kind of ho hum. Not that the movie. Not that the movie lacked too much, and of course it's an upgrade over the second one, but I don't know. I think I was just hoping for more. I'll tell you what, I did love the Mandarin thing, and I love that it pissed off so many people who are apparently claiming to be Iron Man fans.
I hated the backlash that got, because I thought that was such a clever and cheeky twist on the villain, and I get a huge kick out of Ben Kingsley's performance in that.
Yeah. I think you could call it an issue, or you can call it a characteristic. You can call it an upside or a downside. It's really up to the viewer. But I think what it is about the entire Iron Man trilogy is that Tony Stark is such a massive character and such a narcissist and just a big person. He's a genius and he's a billionaire, all that stuff.
Playboy philanthropist.
Right. There's just so much in that one character that we had three pretty ho-hum villains, especially in 3. I mean, I don't even remember what Guy Pearce's name was or anything.
Mike, did his character have like a villain name, or
Mr. Extremis? I don't know.
Might as well.
Yeah. Anyways,
yeah,
it's kind of. I mean, this sounds super cheesy, but it's like the villain throughout this trilogy was Tony Stark. Like he was just wrestling with his own inner demons throughout all 3 movies. Really, the first one he's trying to decide whether he wants to be a philanthropist or a warmonger, essentially. Right. The second one, it's about he's dealing with his own death. It's seemingly inevitable, and the third one, it's about how he's going to get away from this persona that he's created for himself.
And we've yet to get alcoholism.
True, that was a big feature of the character in this comics, correct?
Yes.
Right. He was much more anti-hero-ish in the comics from what I've heard.
Right.
But so yeah, I think that's some people do like that and some people don't. I think he's such a fantastic character that the other qualms of not just Iron Man 3 but the other 2 movies don't really matter that much to me personally, because I just enjoy the character so much.
Absolutely, and it's a really, really fine line to show any kind of growth with this character, because I mean, like you said, his demons are that he's this kind of crazy, not crazy, but kind of this.
He's a little crazy.
Yeah, he's an eccentric. He's a narcissist and all that stuff. But that's also what the audience loves about him. So you can't really change him or stray him from that without damaging his appeal as a character. So it's a really, really tense tightrope walk that they have to do with the character. But there are a couple other like kind of bigger problems with the movie that I found this time around. Was that first of all, the kid was a little too hokey. Just and this is nitpicking.
He's too clever and just
and like, okay, Tony Stark crashes in Tennessee and happens along the one kid in the super rural area that is technologically savvy, and it's
well, don't you know they're all tech savvy these days?
That's true. Those damn kids with their yik yaks and their
internet machines.
Are you guys familiar with yik yak?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's stupid. I don't know.
I don't yak back.
I don't know.
Do you guys ever have a yak back?
No, but no. I've heard. What is that?
It was basically like a 30-second recorder toy that you could talk into and it would play back, and sometimes it would do, like effects on your voice.
Huh.
God, the 90s sucked.
Anyway,
Kidding, I love
You
the
watch
90s.
your mouth.
Anyway, if you're listening to the Snapchat me on Yik Yak and Riff Raff, but so anyway, but the bigger problem I had was like, I think Tiny, you alluded to this, the suits, the Iron Men, the suits, and I get it, like he's dealing with his anxiety after the Battle of New York in the Avengers. He's dealing that by tinkering and by making these suits, these automated suits, these drones basically. And I mean, once you see it the first time, it kind of makes it a little like why do you really need him to be there
ever again?
Like the Air Force One, saving the people flying out of Air Force One sequence is a really well constructed sequence of action, comic book action film. But by the end of it, like there's a quick like gag that reveals that it's a suit. It's like, what's the point? I mean, if he can remote control a suit.
I remember we talked about this last time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Never again is there a threat.
Yeah.
Never should we feel threatened that Iron Man is finished.
Oh yeah. Like, why does he need to go? Well, I understand why he needs to go onto the tanker, because they've got Gwyneth Paltrow, but still, it's like, if he can remote control it with complete functionality, like, why?
Mm-hmm.
True.
But I will say the final sequence on the tanker thing was really thrilling. It was really cool seeing him pop in and out of different suits.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
Cool sequence.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what else works. Really works is the scene early on when, I guess at the end of the first act, when they take out Tony's home.
Mm-hmm.
And Gwyneth and he like saves Gwyneth Paltrow Pepper with the suit. I think that works very well.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. What I really liked about that also is that I might be mistaken, or I might be reading something into it that I want to read into it that's not really there, but I like the idea that he set it up to where it would attach itself to Gwyneth Paltrow. Like he did that with him.
Oh, it absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that he had that much forethought, because there's a line of dialogue where he's talking about how he's worried about protecting the one thing that's most important to him, and referring to Pepper. And it's like, I love the idea, like that little element gives a lot. It gives another dimension to his anxiety, and his fears, because you kind of just think like he's sitting there, he's doing all this, and you think that, okay, it's because he can't sleep, and it's because he can't deal with what happened in New York, but also it's to protect her. Like,
right.
Just the psychological aspect there, the psychological implications of doing that is just, it's really brings about a lot of edge to the character that wouldn't have been there had that not been a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Word.
So yeah. One final thing about Iron Man 3. I think I mentioned it before, but the dialogue, I absolutely loved it. The henchmen particularly, there's one scene, and we can move on to the next movie, but there's one scene where the henchmen, it's after Tony gets rescued, or the suit, while Tony's making his escape, that he points the gun at the henchman, and he's like, what does the henchman say? He says, seriously, I don't even like working here. These guys are so weird. Like, I don't know, something about that it tickled me so much.
Mm-hmm. So funny.
So yeah, so overall, I really enjoyed Iron Man 3. It has some problems, and the villain also, we didn't really touch on that, but Guy Pearce's villain isn't really all that.
Or a bag of potato chips.
Nice.
Yeah, he's basically. I would almost say that he's better than the alternative, or what's been shown in the first two movies, but I wasn't too crazy about the first two villains either, so it's a slight edge up.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. Tiny, any final thoughts?
No, agreed.
Cool.
Sorry, I just choked on water.
I know, and I totally called you out. Like I put you on the spot while you're
Tiny,
choking.
what do you think? I'm dying here.
Oh my god.
So is that close the book on Iron Man 3?
Yes.
I think so. It's pretty good. After Iron Man 3, how did you guys feel about the direction of the Marvel Universe in Phase 2?
Ooh, that's a good question. I personally, I felt like they were, it felt refreshing almost because it's not an origin story. It's a sequel that actually can stand with the rest of the at least Iron Man movies. In my eyes. And, there was a lot of confidence on their part. And I think that really showed through in Iron Man 3. Like they know that they're hot right now.
Yeah.
They can
it felt like these were the kinds of movies we were going to get.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
And then we got Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah. Can I go on a quick rant about Thor just real quick this movie?
Please do.
So, okay, so I had every intention of, and this is more a method of finding movies rant, but I was all set to rewatch Thor: The Dark World. I fell asleep during part of it when I saw it in the theater, and I haven't seen it since because it's Thor: The Dark World. But so I wanted to watch this again, but I couldn't find it to rent anywhere. Google Play. I haven't checked iTunes, but I didn't want to do iTunes because I couldn't stream it to my TV, but I could, it was only available to purchase. And I looked on, I did look on, my Can I Stream It app, and under rental, it's not available anywhere. Like you can only buy a digital copy.
What about brick and mortar?
There aren't really any around here except for Family Video. I didn't actually go there, but,
Family Video is pretty choice.
Yeah, I should have tried that, but I'll probably end up trying that because I still need to watch it. But also Redbox didn't really have it anywhere. I checked their app. It was frustrating, and I was like, this is why people pirate things. And I mean, I'm not taking a stance against piracy or anything like that because whatever. But it's just like, make it available. I didn't like the movie that much, and we'll get into why. But I would have paid $5-6 to rent it again to watch it for this podcast. But I didn't have a method of doing that. And also, I also checked the PSN store, and no, it's frustrating beyond belief. But we're not talking about cord cutting or anything like that, or digital rentals. We're talking about Thor: The Dark World. Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel about it?
I get it. I get that that's a little frustrating, but I gotta say, if I'm listening to this podcast, I'm saying go to Family Video.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you said that because I will try that because I don't want to buy it, obviously, and I don't want to whatever. And no one I know owns it because it's Thor: The Dark World.
Right. I don't.
So,
and there's always
Dustin. My friend Dustin might own it. Other than that, I honestly don't know.
And there's always Netflix disc service.
See, I don't.
I'll say this. Let's get to it.
I do.
Better than the first one.
Yeah. What I remember of it, yeah, better than the first one. Yeah. Mike? Do you want to give your just overall thoughts on it?
Better than the first one.
Nice.
I think we are. They're not my type of movies. They're just not. They're fantasy movies. I've never got the Thor character. I still don't get the Thor character. That doesn't change here.
Mm-hmm.
But because we are not beholden to the origin story, we're free to see a cool Thor adventure. They don't play it so cheeky with him being new to Earth. And we just kind of get a fantasy adventure story. And so I appreciate it for that.
Sure.
I really love the cameos that we got, particularly the Captain America cameo, the Chris Evans cameo.
I don't even remember that.
While so much of the movie doesn't work, I mean, it is not a good movie by any standards. It's kind of a middle of the road a comic book movie. It's passable at best.
Yeah. I'm at a loss here.
I am too because I only saw it in the theater.
Mhm.
and I haven't seen it since. I've only seen it the one time, and I'm having trouble remembering it because it was so not good.
Yeah.
I think the first one's better.
You know, and okay, I'll kind of leapfrog off that if you don't mind. I hesitate to say that the first one's better because, like you said, Mike, we're free to have a adventure movie with Thor that's not where the humor isn't, the comic relief isn't solely about him being like new to Earth and all that fish out of water thing. But I think one of the problems I remember having with this movie was that it seemed like particularly Kat Dennings's character, she was there, like they just really shoved the comic relief of her character and the other supporting characters just down our throats too much.
I completely forgot that Kat Dennings was in this movie, and I have now downgraded it to not pass.
That's right. You are not a fan of the boobs.
I hate Kat Dennings so much. So why did I say this movie was passable? I think I like the fight scenes. I mean, the special effects are top notch. Mm-hmm. It's not I don't really like Kenneth Branagh all that much, despite my love for Shakespeare. I think he's a little too hoity-toity to use a professional critical term.
Sure.
And so we don't get that this time around. Mm-hmm. But man, Kat Dennings, man, just not funny, just so not funny, and thinks she is the funniest.
Yeah, I was gonna say, expand on what Matt said. They shoved her comic relief down our throat, but to no effect at all because it was terrible comic relief.
Yeah,
I remember very few genuine like hearty laughs in the theater.
I remember none.
Yeah, I remember none, but like there were some chuckles and some laughs, but nothing, no like gut busters like we get in some of the other movies.
Right, and it's another.
I gotta say, it's been so long since any of us watched it. Like, longtime listeners are going to go back to when we reviewed the episode and hear us both. Yeah, Kat Dennings, I hate her, but she was actually pretty good in this.
I don't think we have anything to worry about there. And another thing, and this also can be said about several other Marvel Cinematic movies, but the villain was just really lackluster.
Oh man, yeah, so empty.
Yeah, you got Christopher Eccleston to play him, but it's such a, it's like Tiny said, it's a hollow villain that's really only there just to stir up some crap.
It's a placeholder.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I feel like it really deserved, and a lot like the movies with lackluster villains really deserve a strong three-dimensional, strongly motivated villain. And another thing that I wasn't a fan of, and I continue to not be a fan of. I'm gonna tiptoe around my words here, but I think that Tom Hiddleston does a fantastic job as Loki. Mm-hmm. I don't think, and I can't remember if I said this last week, but I don't think the character is worthy of the fan love that is just gushed upon him. Like
100% like retweet.
Right. Nice.
Yes.
And like,
I agree.
Yeah, and I meant to post this on Facebook when it spoiler alert for when we talk about Age of Ultron, when there was news this week about, just standard like post-release news. It's like, oh, this Loki scene got cut. And I'm like, thank you. I'm glad that it got cut, because what use does he have in the movie? Because it would just be fan service for a character that, people really enjoy because he's hot. Which is real. I'm minimalizing. I mean, he does a really fantastic job, obviously, but it's more about pleasing the fans than creating a strong three-dimensional character out of him. And I think that that's a really big disservice to Tom Hiddleston's acting abilities, because he is fantastic as Loki. Mm-hmm. It's just the scripts are never there for him.
Yeah, and
so go ahead.
I was gonna say the character sort of exists as just like a thorn in the side of Thor. A thorn. But he really is. I mean, that's a lame...
This is true throughout Marvel Comics.
Is it?
There was a heroic turn he had at the end of Siege where he saved the day, so he kind of played a major player in that. But other than that, he is, he's a thorn in the side. He's the god of mischief. He's not the god of the destruction of the world.
Right. He's never like a threat, like a massive threat. I mean, he does make waves. Obviously, we see it in the end of this movie, but I don't know. But he's really entertaining. Like Matt said, he's entertaining, but he's just his significance is really overplayed.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
let's not. I don't want to waste more time on Thor than we have to. But
right.
Can they make a good Thor movie?
I just don't know.
And what would it take? My stance is probably not. And that might just be me because I don't like Thor.
Mm-hmm.
One of my good friends, Jake, he's a Thor fan and he kind of appreciates the power of Thor. And there are things Thor does in comics that I like, but I don't think he makes a good movie character.
I wouldn't go so far as to dismiss him from being able to have a strong movie in the franchise anyway. I mean, but it's an uphill climb. And I think that given what we see in Age of Ultron and what I'm hoping will lead into Ragnarok when it comes out, I'm hoping that they can make me care about the character and his journey apart from the Avengers. Like, that's my hope for Thor Ragnarok when it comes out. And I feel like that's a reasonable thing to want out of a movie.
I think he's really just he's most enjoyable when he is supported by other strong superheroes. Like when
It's like the Hulk thing, really.
Yeah, when he's in the Avengers movies, I enjoy him. But in his two standalone movies, meh.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be that way for the third one.
Yeah.
What else came out in 2013 besides these two movies? What was big that summer?
12. Well, I was going to say 12 Years a Slave, but that wasn't that summer.
The big summer blockbuster, 12 Years a Slave.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually
summer.
Not even Gravity. Gravity was...
Star Trek Into Darkness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. My favorite movie of the year.
Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yes.
That could have an effect on how I feel about at least Iron Man 3. Thor's just a turd sandwich, but yeah. So moving on.
Also, I don't really care about Natalie Portman. I don't think she's very good. And she just it feels like she doesn't want to be there in these two movies.
Yeah.
Two Thor movies.
She seems like either
echoes of Kirsten Dunst in Spider-Man 3.
That's Well, I think it's more. I think Kirsten Dunst really doesn't have the acting chops either.
Right.
Natalie Portman is. I think that she. I don't know if this is her mentality, but whenever she's on screen, I just get the feeling like either she feels this way or my interpretation of her is this way. But it feels like she's just a little bit above it. Supporting love interest role in a
and she is.
She is. World War Z also came out in the summer of 2013.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, that's Thor: The Dark World. Also, I should mention it. I don't know if they've announced who's going to direct Ragnarok, but I hope that Alan Taylor gets another shot at Thor because I really respect his work on HBO series. And I think that with a stronger script, he could be the one that could deliver a passable or solid Thor movie.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, I mean, the rest of these movies are just turds. We've got
we peaked. It peaked with Thor.
Well, the problem with the rest of the movies is that
is that even a real? Can you even use that sentence? The problem with the movies after Thor: The Dark World
the problem is that they don't have Loki.
I missed Loki. I felt his absence.
Yeah. So anyway, the next movie is 20 from last year. We heaped praise upon it in an episode of the podcast whose number I'm going to have to go back to later.
Would it make more sense to point out what we don't love about this movie? Because we've talked about it so much.
Right. I mean, my review was going to be what can be said that hasn't already been said.
Yeah, I mean,
And honestly, I'd need to watch it again with a notepad and try to come up with things about it that I don't like. By the way, Captain America: The Winter Soldier is what we're talking about.
Yeah. By the way,
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know off the top of my head. I can't think of anything. Maybe there isn't enough Winter Soldier. I don't know. You guys go.
Well, I think it's, and I'm kind of stealing this from our friends at Nerds Domain podcast. They talked about this. I don't recall the episode. It may have just been an immediate review of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but they were saying that by all rights, Hawkeye needed to be in this movie and belonged in this movie, because this movie is almost as much about S.H.I.E.L.D. as it is about Cap, and he is a huge feature of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hawkeye, and he's not in this movie, yet Black Widow's in it, and Nick Fury's in it, and Kobe Smulders is in it. I don't recall her character's name.
Maria Hill.
So, they're all in it, but no Hawkeye. It's just kind of weird, and I think trying to squeeze him in could have been a hindrance on the movie, maybe a little bit. Yeah. It would have been oversaturated, but by all rights, I think he should have been in it. And it's maybe a little unfair to Jeremy Renner and Hawkeye in general.
I agree, but
that's fair. Maybe he was home with his family.
He was getting his wife pregnant 3 times during this movie.
Good point. By the way, the episode in which we reviewed The Winter Soldier is episode 49 of the podcast, and it's hard to pick apart this movie and to try to find anything to criticize about it. I mean, and that's not to say it's a perfect movie. No movie is a perfect movie. I would venture to say that, because there has to be something to pick apart. But this is such a fun movie, and it's so important to the canon and the universe of that has been built upon these last, how many, 6, 7 movies, and it's such an integral storyline that plays out, and it plays out so well.
Even pays off later on.
Oh yeah,
in Age of Ultron.
Oh yeah, and there is a big shift. Like, this movie made Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like a much better show. and that's it's really incredible. And if I were to pick it apart and to try to find fault in it, which, I mean, that's, if I love the movie, I love the movie, but I will say that maybe Robert Redford was a little, maybe
so you can't even.
Maybe he looked in the wrong direction in one take. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, he was a little. I don't know. I really don't. I'm at a loss. I really love this movie. One thing I will say that's not really a gripe on the movie, but I feel like I kind of feel like they were setting up what's her name's character, the neighbor who turned out to be an agent. I feel like they were setting her up for something, and she hasn't appeared anywhere else. She's not in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's not anywhere else. Yeah.
Isn't she on a show? The actress on a show on HBO or ABC maybe?
Yeah, she's
Revenge?
the lead in Revenge, and that just got canceled. So
did it?
Maybe she'll pop up in another show.
Maybe. I think we've talked about this before, but this movie's just so ballsy, and that's the best. That's kind of a I don't know, tawdry word for it, but it's just ballsy because this is the first time that we really get one of these single hero movies, if you will, like a standalone as opposed to one of the Avengers movies, where it thrusts itself just so prominently into the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a tentpole movie. Like, this is so much of the rest of these movies will jump off from this point. This is a tipping point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's just a Captain America sequel.
Oh yeah,
that's if they can start doing this with all the other movies, that's amazing. If they can pull that off, and it seems like they're kind of going for that because the next Cap movie, Civil War,
right?
I don't know what Thor Ragnarok's going to be like. There's no more Iron Mans. Guardians 2, I don't know, but still, it's just really. It was just so hugely ambitious as just a Cap sequel that it did all these things.
I will say that the prosthetics used in the scene where he visits Peggy Carter were atrocious.
Oh, those are bad.
They were really bad.
I don't. Is it prosthetics? I think there's a little bit of CGI there too.
There might be. I don't know, but
I think actually it's mostly CGI. It kind of looked like Birdman.
Yeah, I think I remember you mentioning that, or maybe you were talking about something else. But yeah, it didn't take me out of the movie, but it was kind of like made me roll my eyes just a little bit.
And I don't think it was too necessary of a scene, really.
Yeah,
I do. I love that. I love how it pays off. I love that it's more like the only thing he loved is dying, and
yeah, that's true. I guess he's shaking off the last part of his past life. I guess. So that's true.
I think it's funny. Well, I guess funny that this is the sequel to Captain America, and the next sequel to Captain America is going to be Civil War, and it just feels like they're really, really distancing. Not that there's anything more story-wise to drive home from the World War II era of Captain America, but I just feel like they're just, like that first movie had such poor reception from audiences that I feel like it's not forgotten because it's integral to the plot, but I think that's just that style is gone, obviously.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about
Civil War.
Oh,
me too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, me too. And really briefly, I forgot to mention this when I was talking about Agent Carter. I almost said Aaron Carter, but this is such a shame, and this is going to go on a rant, and we can switch gears after this, but it's there's so much discussion going on about women in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how they're depicted and all that stuff, and I would love a strong female driven role that isn't contingent on the men or anything like that, and I don't and all that. I would love that. And Agent Carter, the show, the character is very strong. I really love the character, and Haley Atwell, if she will return my calls, she would be happy with me. But and I'm sitting here talking about how I want a strong female role, and I'm just objectifying the actress in it. Great, good job, Matt. So anyway, but she's a very strong character. I really like how the dynamic in her show between her and another character is very strong and very kind of like she's taking the lead, and he's kind of this dopey guy. He's Howard Stark's butler, who's named Jarvis. But anyway, at the end of the day, when I finished Agent Carter, I didn't feel guilty about this, but I felt like this is a shame because all I kept thinking was the spin-off for World War II or post-World War II era Marvel Cinematic Universe TV show would have been better if it was focusing on the Howling Commandos.
Yeah.
I felt like that would have been a stronger show, and it's such a shame because I really wanted Agent Carter to really, break free from all the criticism and stuff like that, and kind of be a step in the right direction for gender equality in the cinematic universe. But it didn't do it for me. So anyway, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Tis good.
It is. Yeah. One final
It could end up be. Me, I love grand statements. It could end up being one of my favorite movies.
Oh,
I mean, ever.
Definitely worthy.
It could work its way. It could wiggle its way into my top 10.
Wow.
Nice.
Worthy. Definitely worthy. One thing I will say is that the Winter, I think, Mike, you hinted at it, that maybe the Winter Soldier was a little, I don't know. Yeah, he was good. He was great. And the dynamic between him and Captain was fantastic.
My complaint about the Winter Soldier was that when he takes off his mask, he's got a baby face. Like, he was scary and menacing up until he takes his mask off, and that's like, oh,
sure,
sure.
I would go so far as to say that, if I were to draw complaints from it or think of how it could be better, is that the Winter Soldier isn't the villain. The villain is Hydra, and I feel like that's a little maybe the Winter Soldier is not quite a placeholder. He's
a pawn.
He's a pawn, yeah, but at least he gives a lot of development to the story and everything. So it's not even, it's a weak criticism at best.
Yeah.
So yeah, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, really good movie. I loved it, and we all loved it.
Yes, we did.
Show.
Yeah. Next one on the list is, again, in 2014, Guardians of the Galaxy. And I love this movie. I absolutely love this movie, but I'm not going to shy away from some of the criticisms I have of it.
Yeah, please.
So how about just should I just roll with it?
Do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I think when we were talking about Thor, I mentioned that it's really hard for I kind of gave it the benefit of the doubt, saying that it's kind of disconnected from the rest of the movies, and it's a different universe. It's a different backstory for a much different character. What Guardians of the Galaxy does, and does so freaking well, is that it takes us away from everything. And it's the only real tie to what we've seen going forward is the Infinity Stone, and Thanos and stuff like that. But other than that, it's completely out of what we've seen. And this is probably due to James Gunn being so awesome with this movie. It's a crowd pleaser. It's a crowd pleaser. I love this movie, but I'm not going to. Okay, so my criticisms of it, I'm all over the place. I apologize, but my criticisms of it is it falters in the villain. Ronan the Accuser is a pawn, also much like the Winter Soldier to an extent, but he's not integral to the plot. He's hollow. Like I don't like his arc because I don't really have. He's kind of a cookie cutter villain for me. There's nothing that really sets him apart, and I think that the movie kind of really struggles with reconciling that with a really fantastic team building movie kind of dynamic. So, what do you guys think?
I agree with you all the way. For me, the movie is about. Let's go with what works.
Mm-hmm.
It is the best use of a superhero team that I've ever seen, and I mean,
nice.
Even since seeing Age of Ultron,
Mm-hmm.
the way they come together, and the fact that the only way they're not killed by the Infinity Gem at the end of the movie is that all of them have to work together to hold on to the thing.
Right.
Like, I teared up because of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a perfect example of team building and team using. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but anyway, that's like it felt to me as if that was the point of the movie they wanted to get to, and so Ronan was the means by which they get to that scene, and it could have been anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is kind of what you're saying. I wish there was more to say about Ronan. We get more about his daughters, or Thanos's stepdaughters or adopted daughters, and they have more of an arc than Ronan does.
Absolutely.
He's a thug.
Oh yeah, Tiny. What were your thoughts?
Wow, that threw me off. Oh yeah. Ronan was, I completely agree, and I think we said that when we talked about it last time. He was just, he was another placeholder. He was another Loki, except to even less effect than Loki in the Avengers and the other Thor movies. He just offered nothing. That's the biggest flaw of the movie, in my opinion. But I think what the movie achieved besides that overshadows that failure or that flaw, because not only did you establish these five new characters, but they came together as a team in one whole movie. You know, you establish 5 characters and then bring them together in what I agree completely with what Mike said, that it was arguably the best team building and teamwork example of teamwork in a superhero movie that's been achieved yet, as far as the movies go, anyways. Mm-hmm. That's just a massive achievement, especially given that this is, it's part of this is going to be part of this Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is technically, but like Matt was saying, it's kind of in this first movie, it was established away from that universe, really, or it's just a whole different. It's a different galaxy. It needed to be guarded. Yeah, it just had that. It had such a great feel to it. The music was good.
Oh God, that soundtrack. I awesome. Really, really hate how accurate the Honest Trailer is, though. Honest Trailers, it's hilarious, but Honest Trailers does this whole thing where their whole thing with Guardians of the Galaxy, if I'm remembering correctly, they just call it Space Avengers. And they call out all the parallels between this movie and the Avengers, and how it's kind of a I hesitate to say run-of-the-mill Marvel Cinematic Universe, Marvel Studios movie, but I mean that's kind of like what they were saying, and I mean it works because the chemistry between the characters and the way that the movie was shot and the soundtrack, like all these elements all put together, makes just an incredibly exciting, fresh, and awesome blockbuster. But if you strip all that away, kind of the blueprint of it kind of follows a set a set schedule, or kind of it hits a lot of marks that are prevalent throughout the rest of the MCU movies. And it's because the packaging is so goddamn pretty, it's hard to really call that out as anything that would degrade the movie too much, but it is present.
Well, and it's so stylized. It doesn't feel like a Joss Whedon movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? Joss Whedon and James Gunn are so different pretty different stylistically. They're both comic book nerds.
Yeah.
But they have you can tell when you're watching a Joss Whedon movie and when you're watching, they're different. So that's what sets it apart.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wondering if now that Iron Man centric movies are done, I don't think they're not going to make an Iron Man 4 as far as I know.
Not
they would have
Phase
announced
3 at least.
Yeah, they would have announced it.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if Rocket Raccoon is kind of going to take over as like the new Tony Stark kind of persona a little bit. I don't just because he was so funny and everybody just started quoting him like right away. He became like a meme.
He's really damn smart too.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of wonder about that. How much these characters are going to take over.
I never thought of that. Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's fair though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, Mike. What are any final thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy? Should we discuss it more?
Not really. You know, it's still so fresh, and I think everybody kind of agrees. At least there's not a whole lot I can say in a couple minutes that I wouldn't rather do if we did a whole hour on Guardians of the Galaxy. But
sure,
it's good. I think it's easy that summer to compare Captain America and Guardians of the Galaxy, and I've always kind of been on the Captain America side, but sure. I can't fault anybody for loving Guardians of the Galaxy because it's just so damn fun.
Oh, it's the most fun that I had at a movie in a while. Yeah,
good deal.
Yeah, so that's Guardians of the Galaxy, and finally we're getting to the big one, the big, most recent one. Yeah. So
we should say, by the way, that we're going to get extremely spoiler heavy.
Oh yes. Yeah. Okay, Avengers: Age of Ultron. We're gonna. Should we? We'll do broad stuff, and then we'll warn you when we move into spoilers, because we will move into spoilers. Because, I mean, come on, everyone's probably seen it, but just to be safe. So anyway, Avengers: Age of Ultron came out. And real quickly, how did you guys watch it? Me and Tiny saw it together.
Yep.
We saw the double feature with Avengers and Avengers: Age of Ultron, and
how was that? Was it too much?
No,
it wasn't.
Not for me.
It wasn't, and it was it was both in 3D because we're idiots and we don't know how to buy advanced tickets, or we didn't think to buy advanced tickets for the one on the south side that's in 2D, and that. Because that sold out like a week before the night. But it's what I'll say, and I don't know if this is a bigger credit to the movies themselves or if it's a credit to like me adjusting to the 3D culture we're in.
Are we? That's another discussion, but I think we're out of this 3D culture.
Yeah.
No movies are not filmed in 3D anymore. That's over.
That's true.
Right?
Well, until the Avatar sequels come out and fingers crossed flop. But not that I'm actively rooting against them. I just hate James Cameron. But anyway, what I'll say, what I'm getting at is that I don't know if this is I'm acclimating to just, being forced to watch 3D movies occasionally, or if this is just a credit to the movies. But by the end of Age of Ultron, like my eyes didn't hurt or anything like that.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, probably the biggest problem I had with the experience of seeing them back to back is that within about 20 minutes into the first movie, I really had to take a piss. And I didn't want to step on people's toes, like literally step on people's toes was like as we were in kind of the middle. So I had to wait.
The whole movie?
Pretty much, yeah.
Damn.
I'm embellishing a little bit. Like it was probably within the first
diapers.
Yes,
you just let it out.
Yes. I had a bottle with me.
To me, the movie really didn't feel like 6 hours in a movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
The experience, the double feature, it
Right.
felt fluid to me. I wasn't physically or mentally exhausted by the end. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
Good.
Mike, how did you watch it? Because I know that you had a Beatles.
I did. We
cover?
saw the Vegas's #1 Beatles tribute band, the Fab Four, on Thursday night. It was also the draft. So in between songs, I would check my phone to see who had selected which player, the NFL draft.
Oh, right.
And I should also note my last name is White. My brother's name is Kevin, and the Bears drafted a player named Kevin White. So we're all super, super excited about that.
I saw that. I will say, I wanted to make a really quick, stupid joke, but I'm glad that none of us are going to Vietnam. Because it was the draft.
Yeah. Anyway.
50 years ago.
I know.
So that has nothing to do with seeing Avengers. So I did not get to see it on Thursday night, which I suppose is technically opening night these days. But I did buy a solo ticket, saw it by myself. This is the third time I've ever seen a movie by myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure I got tickets, so I bought an IMAX ticket to 3:30. It was the earliest showing, because I had other plans that evening. Right after school, sped out of there, went home, and so there's assigned seats with IMAX, of course. And so I get my ticket, and I sit down next to like these young hipster type. They were talking about bicycling type dudes.
Okay.
God.
And so I'm like, you know what? This is all right. This isn't so bad. But it's like the theater is pretty empty, and then there's these, there's sparingly there are people spread about, but it's these three guys, and then I sit down right next to one of them because that's my seat.
Oh.
To my right are about 10 empty seats, and in front of me is a whole row of empty seats. So I'm like, oh, geez. All right. Well, I'll see what happens. And so about 3 trailers in, I turn to the guy to my left and say, hey, listen, if nobody shows up and this thing gets started, I'm going to move over and know that it's not you, it's me. Right?
I love it.
Thanks. And so I'm like planning, I'm getting ready. Every time there's a new trailer, I'm like, all right, this is the one. I'm going to move. And as I'm about to, like during the Jurassic Park trailer, or it might have been like the end of the Tomorrowland preview.
Yeah.
I turned to the guy, like, about ready to say it, and a group of, like, 36 to 8-year-olds
Oh, no.
come into the theater.
Damn.
That
And
sucks.
so they're wandering, obviously, aimlessly, because what kid has any aim? And they're just looking around, and they're trying to figure it out, and they're bumping into things, and they're spilling the popcorn out of their kiddie combos, and it's everything you might have imagined. But then they sat down, and in fact, one of the chaperones sat down next to me, and she was probably in her 50s. And so, her her English was not very good, so like I would hear her make comments during the movie, and she was liking it. She liked the movie.
Nice.
And surprisingly, these kids were very well behaved. So
nice.
I will say that it turned out to be not nearly as bad as I thought it would be.
That's good.
Good.
I will say one thing, and this is really briefly just a joke that I want to throw out there, and I said that I wouldn't do this, but I will say that the theater during the previews and everything, like a lot of people got really, really excited about that one movie with the old man and the bear at the end. I don't know what the deal was.
The old man and the bear.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
How they came home or something.
Oh, shut up. Shut up.
Yeah, because the Jurassic Park trailer played, and it was like, not much of a reaction.
Right.
But then as soon as you saw Lucasfilm pull up on the screen, people gasped.
Yeah.
And people applauded at the end.
I would be willing to bet that it's the first time most of them had seen that in theater. It is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it was the first time I saw. I loved seeing it in the theater and everything. I'm just being.
Oh,
snarky.
Did you? Did you love it?
I did. It was
really
a lot
like
of
it a
fun.
lot?
There was no Jar Jar. There was no Senate scene or anything like that. So I'm reserving judgment, but I mean, we'll see. Fingers crossed. Okay, so anyway, Age of Ultron. Before we get into it, just again, because we're stalling this really long, but I want to say that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actually set it up beautifully. It's actually, I really liked the way that the most recent episode, as the episode that aired before Age of Ultron was released, it really leads in really well to Age of Ultron. So, broad thoughts on Age of Ultron, and then we'll go right into spoilers. We'll alert you guys to the spoilers, but I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Some really great comedic moments and a lot of heart. There were some issues I had with how they handled some characters, and I thought that they could have been a little bit handled. It could have been a little less on the nose with certain aspects to it, but overall, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The villain was more to my liking than Loki was in the first one. His motivation was clear, and it was just a really, really great dynamic. And I loved seeing the team work together instead of like going through the whole team like building exercise thing from the first one. I feel like that really opened this movie up to showing them working together as a team, as opposed to going through the whole like, oh, well, we can't be a team because we're butting heads on everything. It's more like, no, we're buds. Here, try to pick up my hammer.
Except for some of it. That's and I'll save this for the spoilery stuff.
Okay.
But overall,
okay,
I
sure.
kind of have to echo a lot of what you say. There were some parts that I loved. There were some parts that were I'd call favorites of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that I think Ultron worked better than Loki. I think he's one of the better villains, but I don't think he worked in every aspect. I think he lacked some things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk about that too much until we put the spoiler alert out.
Right.
I think with a cast of characters this big, some of the drawbacks to this kind of movie are pretty obvious. I think that while the team is handled well enough, I think there are the obvious struggles. But overall, I really liked it. I've been telling people that I think I like it more than the first one. We do get some Easter eggs this time around, which is cool. And I think it works. I'm also excited to see what a different director will do next time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tiny.
I also loved it very much. I have not decided if I like it more than the first Avengers. I just can't pick right now. I need to see it again. But it's going to be a close call. I thought it was terrific. I had some issues with it too. The climax and some of the setup. Ultron was pretty great. I think this is a villain that was deserving of an Avengers movie finally. And really probably one of the best villains we've seen, if not the best, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. It was just so good. It was like, you could almost qualify the movie as a comedy because it was so funny throughout. Just some of the best comedy that I think we've seen in this this series. I loved it a lot. I can't wait to see it again.
Yeah, same here. And I'm planning on seeing it again.
Yep, I'm seeing it again tomorrow.
Nice.
Nice.
Very nice. So now that we got broad discussions out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into spoilers. If you haven't seen Age of Ultron yet, hey, why are you listening to this episode? But if not, if you've seen it, keep listening. If not, come back and check the timestamps because we have a big announcement after the discussion of Age of Ultron. So check the timestamps and all that. And spoilers.
Now I'm free. There are no strings on me.
So
My favorite scene in the movie, you guys.
okay.
Early on, when they're playing at Avengers Tower, and they're all a little tipsy, but not too tipsy. They're superheroes, of course, and they're trying to lift up Thor's hammer.
Yes.
I love Captain America. He is easily my favorite Avenger.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime he gets to shine, and of course he gets to shine in the Winter Soldier, that's why I love it so much. But anytime we see why he's kind of the best of them, I get giddy. And so they're all trying to lift it up. I love that Tony asks Rhodey to help him, and they both have on their Iron Man War Machine gauntlets, and they're lifting up. But then Steve Rogers gets up there, and it moves a little bit. And the look on Thor's face when it moves a little bit is awesome. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of crowd participation with the movie, but I did like a yeah. It was awesome.
But I think I said leaving the movie, I was like, I would watch an entire movie that's just them at a party.
Yes.
Just hanging out.
That'd be so funny.
That was so good. So
It's
funny.
that's a perfect scene. That is the type of scene that really, I don't want to say it only works in a movie, but it works best in a movie. They don't really slow down that much in the comics, or at least that it's not that clever when they slow down. But just to show in a wink, in a cheeky way, how these people react together, but also that Captain America is the best of them all at the same time was just awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah. What'd you guys think of Black Widow and Bruce Banner? And is it safe to say that they're just completely ignoring the Incredible Hulk as a movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I understand that. Yeah, I think Universal or someone, or maybe Paramount, still has the rights to a standalone Hulk movie, and that's why they haven't gotten one. But I mean, it was welcome. What'd you guys think of it?
Yeah, I think it was a good direction to go because I mean, it's a weird thing to say, but I think the Avengers movies themselves, Avengers Age of Ultron and then Infinity Wars, they lack a love story, kind of, and it's kind of nice to see them. I mean, even though we're dudes and we like to see blow up and all that, it's kind of. I think it makes
language.
Sense.
Sorry.
For gosh sakes, watch your language. But I just think it makes sense, and I like the way this one was handled. The only problem is it kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't really established. It's sort of like in the opening scene where they're, laying siege to this remnant of Hydra, which was terrific. I love that scene. And I love the fact that there's this, Black Widow does this little lullaby thing with Hulk, and that was great. I love that. but it just comes out of nowhere that like it's just blatantly on the screen that like she has feelings for him. It wasn't established. It just pops up and it's there. And it like I said, it makes sense. It just seemed like they could have built up to it a little bit. I didn't think there was much building to it. It's a minor gripe. I don't mind it so much. It was just a little, they have to manage their time so tightly with this movie because there's so much in it.
Sure.
So I can't fault them too much, but
my not counter to that, but I will say that I didn't get that feeling.
Oh, really?
Because I mean there weren't like hints, there weren't necessarily hints, overt hints at it in the first one, but I mean they Natasha and Bruce had this kind of thing going at least a little bit in the first movie, like she's the one that got him into the fold, and then she was there when he transformed, and she was like kind of comforting him and all that. It was kind of a precursor to their dynamic in this movie. And I mean, I guess I guess I can see where you're coming from. That yeah, it is kind of sudden that it's a romantic relationship, but I didn't have a problem with it. Mike, what do you think? Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I come down somewhere in the middle. Not that you guys were all that split.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed a little strange that it just kind of happened that way, that they were already kind of together before the movie started. But also, I agree that they need to do that. They kind of joke about how she's flirtatious. Tony Stark does that, or not Tony Stark. Captain America does it and says I've seen her flirt, but I don't know that they necessarily needed a love story. I kind of feel bad that the lone female character has to be pawned off with one of the other characters.
It's true, yeah.
Sure.
Not that they objectify her. I think they do a very good job of. I mean, she's a badass by all means, and I don't think the love story defines her. But I don't know. It seemed kind of obvious. It seemed kind of inevitable that they would do that, and so in a movie that doesn't always go with obvious, it was kind of, I don't want to say disappointing, but not my favorite thing, I guess.
Well, and to build on that, this is sort of a. Throwing her into that sort of default role is a bit predictable and sort of not misogynistic or chauvinist, but it's a statement on the state of female roles in movies these days. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, this is like the first movie where we really get like true backstory on Natasha Romanoff.
Yeah,
she
that's
has,
true.
In her little Scarlet Witch dream, she goes back and thinks about her time at the school.
Did you guys read today all the interviews with Joss Whedon?
No.
It's okay. So I just recorded with Matt Quiet and Shirley from the Nerds Domain. They're doing a new podcast about Star Trek. The episode's not going to air until November, but the podcast is called There Are Four Lights. Check it out. But when it eventually comes out, but we got on a tangent, and I can't remember if it was when we were recording or not, but they were telling me about it, and apparently, like, a lot of the backlash or some of the critics of people, because to put it into context, Joss Whedon quit Twitter because of people, screaming at him, and one of the complaints, I guess, was that they felt like by having Black Widow or having Natasha tell Bruce that she was sterile and she could never have a baby and all that they felt like that was like, well, not all women want to have babies, and that's not the only reason that women are here. And it's like, that's not the point of the scene at all. It's like she's sharing a traumatic thing from her past and connecting and like that's a way to connect with Bruce. And it's like, that's not like,
it's not for her at all.
No.
It's like, you could maybe use that as a critique for Hulk, Bruce saying, you can't have, like him saying that you can't have kids, or I can't have kids, and she's thinking, well, I can't anyway. That's not the point. Here's some story about me. So it was a moment of vulnerability.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But anyway, it's pretty clear. Maybe it's not pretty clear. I take it that Joss is glad to be done.
Yeah.
a little bit.
And so those scenes, those dream sequences, there was he wanted a lot more of those.
Really?
Yeah, and he kind of had to fight to keep those in, and
Mhm.
there was more. They wanted more of the scene where Thor kind of goes off on his own little thing, goes to that pool.
Mhm.
They wanted more of that, and he didn't think it fit. And I agree with him.
I agree.
I think it's kind of a strange tangent.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I wasn't too fond of in the finished movie. Is that I thought that was just way too like, okay, well, there's robots that are going crazy and everything. Oh, I better go visit the dude from my movies and then go swimming. Make him watch me go swimming. I thought that was just so silly and weird, and just a weird.
It was,
tangent.
and so it's universe building, right? And so he wanted to do the farm, and the studio didn't love the whole farm scene, and they basically said, you have to choose. You can either keep in the Thor stuff, and then you can keep your farm stuff, or if you get rid of the thing, then you don't get the farm stuff. So, which I'm glad. I'm glad they kept the farm stuff.
No, me too.
Yeah, it was better.
Yeah. To kind of go back to us talking about Natasha and Bruce. First of all, Bruce responding to her, telling him that she can't have kids, and by telling her to calling her a bitch and slapping her and telling her to go back to the kitchen was just really weird. But anyway, that didn't happen. But
Nice.
So, but no, the one hindrance to that romantic subplot was that it felt like in the first movie that they were really building up, a romantic relationship between Hawkeye and Natasha.
Yeah.
And now in this movie they're best friends, and we get backstory on Clint. Yeah.
Clint Barton.
And Clint Barton. And I didn't have a problem with the backstory. I didn't see it coming. I honestly didn't see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I felt like I was so prepared to be so pissed off if they killed him off, because they were laying it on so thick. And even as a misdirect, it doesn't really, it kind of leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, because I mean, it's okay to mislead the audience, but to be so heavy-handed with it, I feel is a really, really big misstep in storytelling. Because
Whedon said that was his goal.
Really?
He wanted you to believe that he was going to die.
See, there's ways.
And then I also, my friend Dustin, by the way, who will probably listen to this episode. Hi, Dustin.
Hi, Dustin.
He liked it. He liked
Really?
the misdirect. Yeah.
Bye, Dustin.
Actually, he mentioned that. No, what he said was he wished that Hawkeye would have died.
Wow.
So I would have been so mad. And I don't have a problem with him intentionally building something up to mislead us into thinking that they're going to die. I don't have a problem with that at all. I mean, hell, a Joss Whedon movie in which a character is built up to like they're going to die, and then them not dying is a really big credit. Nothing against Quicksilver, but the way that he did it, I mean, just like, oh, hey, by the way, Hawkeye has this whole secret family, and his pretty wife has a baby on the way, and she might name him after Natasha. Oh, but it's a boy, and it's like, okay, you're showing us that he has something to lose, and it's
well, and to add to that, the heavy-handedness in the climax of the movie. They show like a slow motion scene where he's about to sacrifice himself to save a child, and just out of nowhere, Quicksilver just hops in and just takes the bullet for him, literally. Bullets.
Oh, and early on, they're saying, he's talking to Tony Stark. One of us, we're not all going to make it out of this alive.
Yeah, right.
And I did like the kind of cheeky or the tongue in cheek Quicksilver line, like, you didn't see this coming, did you? Or something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, Whedon. All right, settle down, buddy.
Yeah.
We didn't, but I'm still a little ticked.
It was just too thick.
Yeah.
Too heavy-handed and thick. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious how I'll feel about it on repeat viewings now that I know, because I literally spent the entire time thinking like they're gonna kill him, they're gonna kill him, and that's not no. I mean, they can't bring him back it's not gonna be able to bring him back again like
So,
Coulson.
What did you guys think of Quicksilver? Speaking of deaths, Quicksilver's death and Scarlet Witch.
Tiny.
I really liked Scarlet Witch. I thought what they achieved with that character in this one movie was really impressive. I mean, just she had a lot of depth in this one movie. Quicksilver, not so much. But
yeah, it's easy, right? Because we're supposed to compare Quicksilver to the X-Men universe, and I got to give the nod to the X-Men Quicksilver.
Definitely. You know, I will too, but I will say that with a caveat that the odds are stacked against Aaron Taylor Johnson in any case, because I mean with Evan Peters in X-Men, I mean we get that one little scene, and it's such a perfect sequence. It's such a perfect way to just bring in a character and not take him out, but like not have one contained scene with one character, and it was pulled off so beautifully. But the problem with Quicksilver in Avengers is he has the entire movie. There's enough chances for him to, it's the odds are stacked against him that we're going to prefer him over X-Men. But
he not only has to fill the shoes of the character that's already been established in X-Men, but he also has to fit in with all these other characters that are already there. So he there was no way he could have really done it.
Yeah. And I didn't have a problem with either of them. I thought that they were great. I thought that they were really good additions to the cast and to the dynamic and everything like that. And I liked one thing that I really, really, really liked in this movie was that they are with Ultron. They're working against the Avengers. They have their reasons and all that. But then it's as soon as they notice, like, oh, okay, this guy, he's a little crazy. Like, it's immediate. They switch sides and they're fine. Like, I respect the hell out of Joss Whedon for that, because it's such it could have been played for like this really, like, they could have been held captive. They could have wrestled with their feelings. Oh, we could take down Stark, but he's gonna destroy the humanity. And it's just such a quick thing. Like, it's such a Quicksilver thing. It's such a quick thing that it was so pleasant that they didn't go the melodramatic route with it, and I really appreciated that in this movie.
Me too.
Same here.
Yeah, it felt like it was smarter. It was smarter. It showed that there was a respect with the audience for that, and I really liked that.
Yep. To comment on the science of the movie, just the fact it seemed kind of just very rushed that we went from Jarvis to AI in like 10 minutes. And they did it using some Hydra like software or technology.
Yeah,
or
I gotta say I don't fully understand everything that happened.
Right.
It was a little muddled.
They play it very fast and loose with exactly what Vision is.
Right. It was just
by the way, I love how Vision got his name.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It was just too far fetched that it happened so quickly, and that things just jumped off just so rapidly and fell into these slots so quickly. So there was that, and then just the climax where the city is rising into the air. There was just like no science there. They were just like, yeah, it's gonna fall and explode because science. And I just didn't really, and
there was science there, but it was like a blink and you'll miss it kind of like explanation. Yeah. Like I wish that it would have been more.
That I can buy. I can buy that it would kill all the people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the way that it was presented, it was too brief, but I wish it would have been more. The stakes would have been established more. I mean, there's a couple scenes that I like, oh, this is going to cause an extinction level event, and it'll be like that. And it's like, okay, cool, we're on board. But it's like, give a little bit more suspense to that. Build it up a little more.
It was the slow crawling laser from James Bond.
Sure.
It was literally just a slowly moving into the air. It's a ticking clock.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a little simple for this given how complicated the science was, it was overly simplistic, I think.
Yeah, and
That's a minor qualm. I thought
Sure.
it's cool. There's a whole city that flies into the air. That's pretty awesome. But,
Right.
it's just minor qualm.
And to go back to what you said about the science of Ultron and all that, I felt like it would have been a lot cleaner, and maybe this is my expectations going in, but I felt like it would have been a lot cleaner if Ultron was like an established thing that he had already, like, that Tony had already been working on and everything like that, the Ultron program, and maybe bringing in the scepter and introducing that to it is what corrupted it and made it like that. I thought that would have been a much cleaner way to do it, instead of being like, oh, we have the scepter for 3 days. We can do a cool montage and really do this Ultron thing. I felt like that was just a lot of unnecessary,
Shoehorning in plot.
Yeah, kind of.
Quick.
Yeah, it was, and it was a little. They could have cut out a lot of the setup and made it a lot more streamlined by doing what I just said.
Agreed.
But I'm just a podcaster in Indianapolis. But yeah, what did you guys think of Ultron though, as a villain?
I've had time to think about. Initially, I wasn't crazy about him. I love his motivation. That was very clean. I thought he looked great. I thought the action was fantastic, and I thought the dialogue was good. But I didn't. He lost some of his menace when he started to get a little quippy, a little funny.
True.
I agree. Go ahead.
And so after thinking about it, I was like, well, he was created by Tony Stark, and so we get him kind of borrowing lines from Tony Stark in the middle when he is making who the man who would be Claw by cutting his arm off. But and he says, that's something I heard from Tony Stark. That kind of that makes sense then, that he's really just being Tony Stark. He's a robot version of Tony Stark. But
Yeah.
some of it felt a little too jokey. He wasn't as scary anymore. And also, and this is huge spoiler, but we've already warned you, the movie ends very, very easily. Like, what's to stop him from just air sending his knowledge to another computer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they didn't do a really good job of establishing how he operates, and because he's like they went through and said like, oh, like he's in the internet and he's traveling, he's everywhere, he's gone.
Right.
But it's like, okay, so how do you stop him? I don't understand how that. Yeah, it was a little tricky there, and I feel like they could have done a little bit better with that.
Yeah, yep. he would have holed up in a satellite in space somewhere.
Yeah,
something like that. Right. But yeah, I liked him too. I couldn't help but like him, which is definitely bias on my part because I gave for James Spader. He's just amazing, and I really liked. Again, I think the steps they took with the character were great because like the whole part where he was getting ready to essentially transfer his consciousness into the weird hybrid mechanical, basically a T-1000 type thing. That was kind of worrisome. You really felt the stakes there of why he needed to be stopped because that would be really bad. And then just from there, how he recovers from it. He's like, well, I can't beat them, so I'll just destroy them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked the desperation of his character and how he was kind of a mad scientist. You could see that he was, he was in his infancy and was still learning, even though he was, he had access to so much information instantaneously. We see that when he's born, in quotes, when he was born,
Right.
he just downloads all this knowledge instantaneously. And even with that, he's still kind of like a baby, which is a weird way to say it.
Yeah.
He's still infantile.
Yeah.
Still learning how people interact and stuff like that. I thought it was a really good balance, a delicately created character.
Sure. And I agree with you, Mike, that he did get pretty quippy.
Yeah, me too.
And I think part of my gut reaction of being like, okay, that's a little much, was that it could have been the marketing was really playing him up as being a menacing villain.
True.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was just a disservice to what he ended up being. And
Right.
I enjoyed, like, I thought that some of his reactions, like when he, chopped off the guy's arm, or when he would kill someone, he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like he did those kind of things. And it, like, that gave like a certain, that erratic shift in tone, really gave him a little bit of a menacing quality that isn't what was menacing about his depiction in the marketing, but it's menacing in its own right. And also, if we want to leapfrog over to talk about Vision, our friend Pat from the Nerds You're Looking For, he mentioned to me when we were texting about it, he was like, once Vision came about, Ultron really wasn't that big of a threat or anything. Like, he was kind of pointless. So it's kind of like, I felt like that was a hindrance to it too. But what did you guys think of Vision? Mike, you said that you loved his inclusion in the movie.
I did. I don't love that he was able to lift Thor's hammer. I get plot-wise why it had to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that they semi try to explain it, I guess. He's a machine, and then you put in an elevator goes up, and it's not worthy. That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, that just took away from the Captain America scene.
Yeah, I saw it as more of I enjoyed it as a callback, and it was a really kind of clean. It was a really cool way to just put a complete end to the arguments over whether or not he can be trusted in anything, because it's like, and it's such a nonchalant thing, like, all right, we need to do this or whatever, and he hands it to Thor.
Yes.
It was a nice it was a nice bit of callback and comedy in it, and I loved that it led to Thor's big moment with Ultron, where he's like, as long as there is breath, air in my breast, I've run out of words to say. Are you ready yet? Yeah. I absolutely loved that. That might be my second or third favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah. There's a lot of those that, and I think even more than the first one. Just, for lack of a better term, I'll call them comic book moments. Mm-hmm. Just moments where you would turn to a friend and just, oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's so cool that they did that. Mm-hmm. Just kind of like, I love the team combo scenes. You know what I mean? Moments where they would, deflect lightning off of Captain America's shield. That's so awesome.
It's so cool.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and we got that even in the beginning. I loved that first battle. That was such a great way to bring us in
through the woods.
Oh, it's so awesome,
so cool,
so awesome.
Great choreography.
Oh yeah.
Well, and in the climactic battle when when Iron Man, Vision, and Thor are each shooting their respective streams of energy at Ultron at the same time.
Yes,
that just looked so freaking cool.
It really did.
Yeah.
I love the Ultron's like, with the benefit of hindsight, boom.
Yeah.
If anything else, this was such a fun movie.
Yeah.
It was just kind of, in terms of fun, action, and all that, it was what I wanted it to be. And it had a lot of heart to it. I really loved Hawkeye's moment with Scarlet Witch when she was freaking out, and he's like, and I absolutely adore the line where he's like, I can't remember exactly what he says. It's like, we're outmanned, we're surrounded by robots. I have a bow and arrow.
He's like, this doesn't make sense right now.
It doesn't make sense right now. And it was such a great, that was a great back and forth between them. And
it was a good fan service.
Yeah.
That's what everybody says. Like, why is there a guy with a bow and arrow with Hulk and Thor? He's a fish. He doesn't really fit in that well.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Any other topics, Mike? Do you have anything more about Age of Ultron?
I don't think so. I can't wait to see it again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all kind of need to let it set in for a little while.
Absolutely.
Right.
Like I mentioned last week, I've been doing these reviews of all the movies, and that's one of the reasons I was so frustrated with not being able to find a copy of Thor: The Dark World. But like, I'm not even prepping a review for it until I see it a second time, because I know that it's too hyped up. I'm too in that like honeymoon phase of the new movie.
Yeah. Well, it's so dense and
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's one final thing. What did you guys think of the ending? Like, okay, so they kind of establish a new set of Avengers, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what
which I'm all for, and that's really cool. But what I'm not really understanding is why don't any of them have movies in Phase 3? I kind of thought that's a little weird, but I can't overstate just how much enjoyment I got out of that last line from Captain America, where he says Avengers, and then it cuts to credits. I thought that was such a fun moment, and like the entire theater just groaned, and I was like, I was just so satisfied.
I feel like my theater didn't quite get that.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
By the way, that scene, when they filmed it, Chris Evans didn't even say assemble.
He didn't?
No, he didn't. Because he wanted to. Whedon said he knew that some producer would say, you cut the line out or something like that, and so he wanted to make it clear that was intentional.
Right. That's smart.
I kind of like it. Yeah. Kind of fun.
I'll probably cut the opening of this episode with the obsessive viewer.
Awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I get Thanos made an appearance.
That was a really cool line.
We got to see the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
so
cool.
now we get to wait a few years for that.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
When does the first Infinity Wars come out? Is it 2019?
Wow. Actually, yeah, that sounds right, actually. So more than a few years.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But, yeah, so... we'll those are our initial reactions, so
yeah. It's early.
It is.
Don't hold to that.
Right.
Yeah.
But best movie ever made, yeah. Infinity War, the first part 1 of Infinity War is 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, so I think that's oh my god, we're running long. So that's our retrospective on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, phases 1 and 2.
We did it.
We did, and that was
a lot shorter than a Summer of Sandler.
Oh my god, yeah,
a little bit more fun.
A lot more fun.
Sure.
That was like a summer of watching Thor: The Dark World. I think that was mostly that was mostly for Fecus because he's a fan of. I don't know if he's necessarily a fan of Thor, but I threw that in for him.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you for listening, and we have an announcement that we're going to make. Actually, I'll just throw it to Mike. Do you want to explain to our listeners what's up?
You said it sounds like I'm being punished, and you're making me apologize.
Now you go to the front of the class.
Tell them what you want to tell them.
What do you say?
All right. Well, jokes aside, next week is going to be my last episode of The Obsessive Viewer for the foreseeable future. Being a part of this podcast, I remember when they initially asked me to do it, or when Matt would tell me that he was going to be doing a podcast, and I kind of had a little whisper in the back of my head hoping that they would ask me to be on it. And they did. They asked me to be, what was it, like 4 episodes in, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, they asked me to be on, and for just about 2 years now, we've been doing this and kind of building it into something I'm not sure we all expected, but we definitely hoped, that we would the place. We got to do a lot of cool things, and just together what we've done, I feel like it's one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of. And I've seen Kiss live, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it really is one of the coolest things. As much as we joke about Summer of Sandler, I had a blast doing the Summer of Sandler thing.
Totally.
We did PopCon last year, which was really, really cool to get out there and to kind of hear from people and see the podcast community. It's super, super awesome that we did the Shocktober in Irvington. I was so proud of that, and just kind of all our Halloween episodes. I love the guests we've had on. That we had John Dugan on. That was really cool. And so it was cool to really see what this podcast would grow into. And I'm super proud of what we've done together, and I'm super proud that we were on it together. And that I got to be a part of it. For the last couple of weeks, actually for the last year, I've been getting my master's in English, and it's been crazy stressful. Because I also teach full time. If you're a listener, you know that. And so it's a decision I've kind of been grappling with for a couple of weeks now. And I saw my schedule for my summer classes and just realized that, to kind of reprioritize my life and figure out what has to be done for me to maintain my sanity and my grades at the same time, I decided it would be best to take a step back from the podcast. And I was nervous to tell the guys. I told them on Saturday morning, and they handled it so well. Super appreciative to them for handling it as well as they did and understanding. And just to any listeners who have listened and kind of paid us any compliments or tweeted at us or just listened for fun, I appreciate it. I love you guys. Thank you guys for listening so much. I'll be on every now and then. I wouldn't miss the Star Wars episode for the world. I'll definitely come back and do a Shocktober episode. And
Nice.
When I'm done with my master's, who knows? Who knows what happens? But for the time being, we'll have this episode, and then next week we'll do my last episode. And I don't know if we've picked a topic yet, but I hopefully we'll do something special. So thank you guys so much for listening, and Matt and Tiny, thanks for having me.
Hey, yeah. I'll go ahead and just echo what I said in our pod chat when you sent it to us. Amidst all the expletives that I did, I'm kidding. No,
He told me to eat my shorts. It was weird.
it was really. I just reverted back to just being a kid, and like I just threw a bunch of movie references and TV show references. It was grappling with it, but no, seriously though, like I think I can't speak for Tiny, but the obsessive viewer, this podcast would not be as great, or I wouldn't have, I don't know how to phrase it. The podcast wouldn't be what it is today without you. And I said this in the pod chat, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Your name was kicked around. We discussed having you on from the beginning, like even before we even recorded the first episode. You were a very integral part to the podcast, whether you wanted to be or not.
Yeah.
It was just figuring out the logistics and everything. And I was so happy that we were able to get you on, able to fight through the technology difficulties that we had in the early days, and be able to have you for as long as you've been on. And
yeah, lots of tech stuff. By the way, if you guys don't know, I am not in Indy. And so
Right.
all this perfect sound quality you hear is our equipment and the wonderful mixing talents of Matt.
oh, thank you.
So
Yeah, and it's funny because who was it? Was it Fecus that he was like? I thought that. I don't know if it was Fecus, but someone.
It was Fecus. He thought you were driving up every Sunday
Yeah.
to record with us.
It's like, dude, that's
Man.
3 hours.
I would have
front-
quit a lot sooner.
Oh yeah, and like,
That were the case.
and not to get too like, I've used this expression before, and you guys didn't know, or didn't like called me out on it because I don't know if I'm using it right. But not to get too inside baseball with this or anything, but I have no idea if I'm using that right. I don't care. But like when you said you were worried about it and everything, like there was nothing to be worried about. Obviously, I mean, we hate to lose you for however long you're going to be gone, but I think it's worth mentioning and worth applauding you that you've been. This isn't like, oh, I decided to get my master's I have to dump the podcast now or I have to leave the podcast. It's like you've been working on that while doing this. And like that is something that I have just incredible respect for you to
Thanks,
be able to manage your time that well and further your career and education, all that. And then just the fact that you set aside time to do this with us and put up with my crazy planning and everything. Cause sometimes I kind of lose sight of, you guys not having as much free time as I have. So I'm like, hey, let's do a David Fincher retrospective. Here's all the movies he's watched. Let's made.
Spend a summer. Whoa.
Right.
So it's fun. It was fun. I mean, it's always fun. It never, I think it goes without saying. And I hope listeners know I'm not stepping back because it's not fun. I'm not stepping back because I don't enjoy it or there is nothing happened behind the scenes between the three of us. So
this has been except for that one time that Tiny told you to stop being a bitch and go back in the kitchen.
That's true. I also got to meet Tiny.
Yes.
And because of this podcast.
Oh yeah, and I mean, well, I might reiterate this next week when we do your farewell episode, but like that was one of the biggest things about doing this podcast with you guys, and what was so important to me is like you two are like two of my closest friends in the world, and like you guys have been like Tiny. I know I've known you since junior high. Mike, I was roommates with you now a decade ago, and we're still friends. So we have like this history, and like starting this podcast was the first time like I had talked to Tiny about you, and I had talked to you about Tiny, and then this was like the first time that you guys were meeting, and like that was just really important to me to just be able to bring these two friendships together, and
it worked. We clicked.
It did. Yes.
We met via the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was after nearly a decade of hearing Mike's stories.
Oh yeah.
And just no face or voice to put with the stories. So
exactly.
If it makes you feel any better, in my head you looked like Chris Evans as Captain America. So
and then you saw me and I looked more like the leader in Incredible Hulk.
You just blew him out of the water.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, basically next week we'll start the countdown from when Mike comes back.
Yes.
It's not the last episode with Mike. It's just starting the countdown until Mike comes back.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah.
We will force you to come back.
Right. Yeah. And that was one of the things I joked about it, but I was serious that I wouldn't let him out of his proverbial contract with the podcast unless he came back for the Star Wars episode.
And my contract also includes a stake in the podcast.
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly how we cut it up. Matt, of course, is majority stockholder, but I do own shares and I do maintain those shares. So if you're a listener and I was your favorite obsessive viewer, please continue to listen. I need the money.
Yes.
Yes. And I
will. I'll keep listening too. I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear what you guys come up with. Hopefully, you take some of the stuff we talked about, some of the topics we talked about doing, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to do with those.
Yeah, it's
cool.
gonna be a tough transition, but we'll figure it out. And you will always be a part of the podcast, whether you're on the air or not. So
yeah, sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'll see you next week.
Awesome.
All right, thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks.
But it'll be. So are you guys thinking about a replacement or going with two?
I think for the time being, it'll be me and Tiny. I haven't talked to Tiny about it. Tiny, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking, it'll be us for at least a while, and I don't know. We could just have frequent guests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
They have big shoes to fill.
Right. Seriously.
Well, whatever you guys do, you have my full support.
Right. No, I already called people to replace you because I'm done with you.
We get hounded regularly.
You actually had a backup.
No, not at all. Not at all.
As always, loyal listeners, thank you for listening to the Obsessive Viewer podcast. And thank you, of course, to Loud Like for providing our awesome opening theme music. Their first EP, their first of a few actually coming out in the next few months. Check them out. Anyway, it's called Mistakes We Must Make and features our theme song and a clips of events. Make sure that you rate and review us on iTunes after you listen to this episode. It helps us out a lot, and it gives us the ability to say, hey, people like us. Also, please like our Facebook page at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer, and you can follow each of us on Twitter. You can find Matt at Obsessive Viewer, Tiny is Obsessive Tiny, and me, Mike, I'm at I am Mike White on Twitter. You can also check out the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, where all three of us, but mostly Matt, review movies and TV shows and talk about all kinds of things. It's kind of the written form of this podcast. You can also check out Obsessive Book Nerd, which has book reviews and commentary on the evolving world of reading. And also check out Tiny's The Secular Perspective, which is a podcast exploring the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. If you have any thoughts on the podcast in general, or this particular podcast you just listened to, or even suggestions for future podcasts, please email us individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at obsessiveviewer.com, or you can just email the podcast directly as a whole, kind of directed to all three of us, at podcast@obsessiveviewer.com. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.